And some of it tracks pretty closely with what was outlined in this memo. So I want to bring this up for you. Again, these are the last 2 pages of that infamous memo on Trump's alleged ties with Russia. And you see here that this is some intelligence gathered by the individual who prepared this dossier. And it talks about this infamous meeting, which Trump's campaign disputes ever happened in Prague between a lawyer for his organization, and Russian intelligence officials. And in it, they talk about this kind of this end-of-the-line problem, which is you've done all this election hacking. That's not in dispute at this point. Russia was absolutely involved, in the tampering with the U.S. election. But at some point, the hackers have to get paid. And this is kind of a logistical problem because it's not like you just write a check to the election hacker. You can't just say, here, for election hacking in the memo section. So you've got to figure out, how do we pay these people? And how do we keep them quiet? And how do we prevent them from being arrested in case, U.S. intelligence, identifies them? So this memo, offers an alleged way that, the Trump campaign and Russian officials dealt with that. Again, you can't stress this enough. These are unproven allegations. However, there's a theme through this that we know kind of tracks with how these folks are paid. Basically, it outlines this meeting where they say, Romanian hackers were alleged to be involved in this plot. And so how do you pay them? Well, obviously, the obvious answer is cash. So how do you get them the cash? Who physically goes to these hackers and gives them the cash? That's what was purported to be the subject of this meeting here. And that's actually it's not an easy question to answer, because who wants to be the person handing off potentially thousands or more dollars to a group of criminal hackers? What we know from our earlier reporting on a Colombian election hacker was that indeed all of these payments do happen. Most of these payments do happen in cash. Now you can use Bitcoin. However, that's traceable. So cash is still, kind of the coin of the realm, so to speak, in this regard. And the question is, how do you actually get that to somebody? If this is true, that the Trump campaign was, colluding with Russian intelligence operatives to actually pay these hackers, again, a big if, who does that payment? And the substance of this meeting allegedly was, they were having a dispute about, does Russian intelligence, does the Kremlin actually pay these guys, or does the Trump campaign themselves, or do they split it? Do both of them pay? And how is that facilitated? It's unclear kind of what was decided in this meeting. But what we've learned from some of our previous reporting, is that these are physical handoffs. These are literally, the figurative bags of cash is really how this is done. And of course, the hackers then have the problem of, what do you do with this cash? I mean, you can't just deposit thousands or millions of dollars into the bank and not expect anybody to notice. So what they proposed here was that the guys go to Bulgaria and lay low for a while, with their bags of cash. So that's one possibility of the way, the kind of the end phase of all of this. The hackers get their cash and they walk away. That's one possibility of the way this kind of resolved itself. We've got some questions coming in. Thanks for those. First question is, who leaked the memo? Is it alleged or confirmed? Well, the word leak is a little bit squishy here. This memo has been circulating around Washington for several months now. This was prepared by an independent analyst, a former British intelligence operative, who was paid by, at various times, both the Democrats and the Republicans to prepare opposition research against Trump. So it's a highly partisan document. And it's unverified in the sense that, typically what happens with one of these intelligence reports when it's prepared by the government is you do this kind of research. The intelligence operative goes out and talks to all of his sources, and he comes back with these allegations. People are saying X, Y, and Z. And what the intelligence community does at that point is they try to corroborate that, and they compare it to telephone intercepts, email intercepts, hack data that they have access to, and they try to figure out, what of this is true. But it's important to note, this document has not been through that review. What it has been through, however, is the U.S. intelligence community has vetted the source of this former, British intelligence agent, who apparently has been an FBI, informant in the past and has been an FBI asset in that way. And they have deemed this person's past work to be credible. So that's why this memo was included in the classified briefings, classified papers, delivered to the Trump campaign and Obama. So it hasn't been through the full intelligence vetting, but it has been through, the source has been vetted. So that gives it a layer of credibility, but it's only the most basic. Second question is there a way to digitally track the path and authenticity of this memo? Well, the problem with that question is we know who wrote the memo now. I mean, we have the person's name, it's been published, and his identity is out there. So we know where the memo came from. The more interesting question is, who's talking to that individual, and do they have reason to lie? Are they credible sources? Obviously this individual believed them to be, but it's not exactly a verifiable standard. So we know exactly where the memo came from and which firm it was, and that person's name is out there now. In terms of the question of is the information inside it accurate, that's a question that no digital forensics will get you. I mean, the only way to answer that question is for law enforcement now, frankly. I mean, it's the FBI's obligation at this point to investigate these claims of collusion between, the president-elect and the Russian government, in which case, if any of this is proven, you're talking about serious criminal statutes. And so that's who's going to be investigating this now. And part of this that I find fascinating is that in hacking we tend to talk about these things as if they're these kind of magical things that just happen. I mean, the hacks themselves are very sophisticated, very high end. You log into your computer, your data's gone. But at its core, hacking is a series of kind of very ordinary logistical steps to get you to the end goal, which is this kind of spooky, spectacular hack that happened here in the U.S. And what's funny about these memos to me, and I'll show you another screen, is that if any of this is true, it points to really how mundane some of the aspects of hacking can actually be. Again, logistics, are a key role. Logistics play a huge role in this because, again, people need to get paid. You can't just do a bank-to-bank transfer, and figuring out how to do that is fundamental to how this all works. People don't just do this out of the goodwill of their heart, especially not criminal hackers. It's all about money, whether you're working for an intelligence service that pays you or whether you're, an outside criminal who's doing this for the cash. Those logistical headaches, present themselves in any business endeavor, including hacking the U.S. election. A couple more questions here, which are really good. Is this blackmail? Well, certainly that's been the suspicion that's been, dogging the Trump campaign, ever since some of his sentiments towards Russia have been expressed. It's not the normal response, to what's widely viewed as, a hostile, threat, to the United States. So there's always this idea of, and Russia's very, very good at this. Any compromising material they can get on you, it's much more valuable held back. It's much more valuable when they haven't released it. And especially for a person as high profile as the President of the United States. If you have compromising information about that individual, the last thing you're likely to do is release any of it because it's just so much more valuable unreleased. So in that sense, if any of this is true, then it's absolutely blackmail, and it's blackmail of the highest order. Again, we don't know if it's true, but if it is, one of the most kind of spectacular examples of blackmail, really ever seen. Next question here. Is there claims that this memo was done by a, quote, prankster? Is this a possibility? Why is the memo written so unprofessionally? Well, at this point, the best information is that it was done. It was not done by a prankster. It was done by, a serious person, a former British intelligence, who, has many of the same sources that our intelligence analysts would have. I mean, that's what these intelligence analysts do, is they cultivate sources, some of whom lie, some of whom don't. That's the job of the intelligence community to figure out kind of what's truth and what's fiction, and then run it through these series of tests. So as for the writing, I think what the question is referring to is, the fact that this information isn't backed up with evidence. And that's a clear, glaring shortcoming. However, the one point I will add, the only reason this is out there now is that the U.S. intelligence community has assessed that the source of this is a credible individual. Whether his information is credible or not is open to debate and investigation. But that's a really serious thing. This, again, this memo has been circulating throughout Washington for months, and these allegations have been circulating for months. But it wasn't until U.S. intelligence officials put that stamp of approval on the source of this and included it in the briefing materials for the president and the president-elect that this became, a memo basically worth leaking and worth injecting into the public dialogue. Next question is this British agent now at risk because his name is in the public domain? And what do we know about his credibility? He's absolutely at risk. I mean, some of the reporting suggests that he has, he's kind of gone into hiding, or he's kind of gone underground for the time being. This makes him, a target of so many different people, from Russian intelligence, U.S. intelligence, for various reasons. This makes him absolutely a target of Russian intelligence, for potential harm to him, as well as, individuals aligned with Russia, in that region. So, if he hasn't already, and if the reporting is correct that he is kind of lying low for a while, I think that's a pretty smart move. You don't release information like this and have it kind of explode in the supernova that it has, and not expect some consequences. Because if this is true, this is compromising, potentially a years-long, Russian intelligence effort to gain compromising material about the person who's now the president-elect. That's extraordinarily, exceptionally valuable information if it's true. And putting it out there like this, that it exists, it weakens the value of that somewhat. And in that sense, this person, would be in danger. But again, he's been viewed as an asset to the U.S. intelligence community for some time, and clearly to British intelligence as well. So, you can guarantee they have talked to this person, or they're going to talk to this person more, and see what else he knows. Next question is, what further research is in the pipeline to verify these allegations? I like this question because this really speaks to this idea of why does this stuff come out in the first place? If it's been circulating for so long, why is it out now? And one theory is that, this has been put out there now in the last days of the Democratic administration, the Obama administration, as kind of sending up a flare, saying this stuff is out there, the source of this is credible. It's now the job of law enforcement, of the FBI, to investigate whether any of this is true, and if so, bring serious criminal charges. And you could speculate on what those would be, but it's kind of hard to know now based on not knowing what of this is actually verifiable. But this puts a lot of the pressure on the FBI, and it also does something else, which is it makes it harder for the Trump administration to bury this information. You can't bury this now. Congress is aware, the public is aware, and it's not just kind of hidden in this spooky, shadowy realm of the intelligence community. And that the importance of that can't be understated. If this memo hadn't gotten out, it would have been very easy for the Trump administration to walk in and his appointees for, intelligence positions to say, we're not investigating this further. There'd be no public outcry. There'd be no congressional outcry. And it kind of just goes away. Now, at least, we have kind of the best chance the public would have of this getting, a vetting. The problem, of course, becomes, the FBI will now be investigating the person who is essentially their new boss, the president of the United States. They're supposed to be independent of that, but clearly pressures will exist. Trump has nominated the new Attorney General. That's who would be overseeing any criminal prosecution. Is it likely that he's going to pursue this aggressively? You can make up your own mind about that. But at least now the information and the allegations are in the public realm, and law enforcement will have a duty to both the public, and will be facing, very intense questions from Congress about what they're doing to follow up on this. How does this information transmit from government officials to citizens and or media personnel? Well, what you're seeing here is a pretty rare example of, information that, our suspicion is, the intelligence community has some value in getting out there. Again, for all the reasons we just described. It's, if this information had not made it into President-elect Trump's, intelligence briefing in any form or fashion, it doesn't have the stamp of approval in that way that the media would need to kind of publish it. Again, media organizations sat on this thing for months. So the method of transmission that you have there is kind of an indirect one. You have a memo that's sitting inside news organizations and inside political organizations for many months, but it can't get out without some sort of signal, as it were. And that signal that went up was these tips to CNN, which broke the story, that this information was included in those intelligence briefings. So you've got this circuitous path of, once that piece has been confirmed, the media organizations over here are able to kind of unleash the document. And BuzzFeed and NBC and CNN, they've caught a lot of heat from the president-elect for reporting on, disclosing these documents. But the fact of the matter was, the director of national intelligence, came out with a statement saying he'd contacted, Trump and had a discussion and said this wasn't the intelligence community leaking that. That memo is really interesting because it does two things at once. One, it validates that this memo is actually real. This was included in the, in the intelligence briefing, and this isn't just some made-up thing. This is something that the intelligence community is looking seriously at. And it's a way to say, it's a way to, kind of truthfully say, this was not an intelligence community leak. You didn't have to leak this. This was already out there. The media just needed a signal, kind of that it was okay to publish, so that there was reason to publish this and reason to investigate further, and that it wasn't just some kind of fantasy. And that's where we're at. We're at the very early stages with this document and this information. And at some point in the future, as Congress and law enforcement really digs into this, and journalists as well, we'll hopefully have an answer of how much, if any, of this is actually true. But that's an answer that is not likely to come for some time. So I want to thank everybody who's watched, everybody who's submitted questions. We really appreciate you watching. Again, this is a weekly show, so we'll be here at the same time next week discussing both topics of the day as well as kind of news you can use in the cyber realm. So with that, I'm signing off, and if there are any questions you have offline, please feel free to get me on Twitter at JordanR1000, and happy to answer any questions next week.
Customer-driven business, and we knew we had to have a great product. That's what it's about.